We stand firm, calling to Allah all the time. We let them know, bang, bang, cause it's Dawah time. Alhamdulillah wassalatu wassalam ala Rasulillah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, amma ba'd. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Brothers and sisters, friends, everybody else, how are you guys doing? I trust that you're well. So today the iPhone 6 went on sale across the globe. So we decided, the Dawah Man Squad, that we were going to go to Regent Street 1 a.m. in the morning and we were going to speak to all these die-hard Apple fans that have been queuing up, some of them for 2.5 weeks, in order to go and get the iPhone 6. And we were going to ask them if they knew the connection between the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, and the iPhone 6. Let's see what they had to say.
It's a rain today, that's why. What's gonna happen with you then?
They didn't want to talk to me. So Allah sent down the rain. And then we have some conversation. Allahumma sayyiban nafi'an. Come on, man. It's the rain. It's a barakah, man. What's wrong with these people? Wallah, I love the rain, you know. People are soft. It's a bit of rain, akhi. People
I think I came out of my slippers.
Vitali.
Yeah.
Really?
From Russia?
Yeah.
Are you like the guy who pranks people online?
No, that's the other guy.
Not that Vitali. Let me ask you.
We share the same name.
Same name.
Yeah, we share the same
Awesome. Let me ask you a question. Are you here to get the iPhone?
name. Yes, that's correct.
Do you like the iPhone?
Not really. I'm not an Apple person myself.
Okay, well, you into like Samsung and that?
Sorry?
Samsung.
I don't mind. I used to see Samsung, yeah.
Sorry man, I'm an Apple guy.
You're an Apple guy. Right.
But I'm not that much of an Apple guy.
My friends are all an Apple guy. And
Yeah.
a lot of my loved ones, sister,
Okay.
cousins.
Wow. Do you know the connection between the iPhone 6
Yeah.
and the Prophet Muhammad?
And the Prophet Muhammad.
Wow. To my surprise, not a single human, not a single person there knew the connection between the iPhone 6 and the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. I mean, we're talking about die-hard fans. No food, no drink, in the pouring rain, on a cold night. You love the iPhone that much, but you don't know who to pay tribute to in order for it being something that actually is a reality for us today. Let me explain to you. There are two fundamental pillars that Western civilization acquired from the teachings of Allah and by extension the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him. First is that of the presumption of innocence, and the second is that of the scientific revolution. There are many more, but they descope the objective of this video, so I'll focus on these two. But before I go into explaining these two, I think it's worth us appreciating what life in Europe was like before the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, so we can see how drastically it changed after him, because we didn't have this spectacular civilization just like that. There was a transition period, and the transition period took place after Islam. So pre-Islam, Pope Gregory, he explains, a century before the prophethood of Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, he explains, what is there of this worldly life to enjoy? We observe nothing but strife and difficulty. The fields are in solitude and everything is just dark and grey and grim. Wow, that doesn't sound like the Europe of today, the Europe that people want to fly overseas from just so they can visit and see and appreciate and take in its beauty. That's what it was like a century before the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. Now, let's look into how things changed after. Now, we know that Western civilization, rather Europe, changed and the civilization just grew after the Renaissance. Now, the Renaissance comes from the Italian rebirth, and the Renaissance was a cultural, political, sociological, intellectual movement where they wanted to progress and reform these areas where I just mentioned. And the scientific revolution came as a result of the Renaissance between the 14th and the 17th century. Now, where did the Renaissance come from? Where did it come from? Professor Thomas Arnold, he explains, and he's a Western academic and historian, he explains that the foundational milestone for the Renaissance was Islamic Spain. Let me explain why he says this. The reason for this is because the likes of Galileo Galilei and Nicholas Copernicus and all these other fantastic academics and amazing scientists that paved the way for the technologies that we have today, they didn't just suddenly wake up and pow, they were 400 or 500 years advanced in terms of their scientific understanding of the natural world. No, they worked upon the works of their predecessors. So what Professor Thomas Arnold is explaining here is that Islamic Spain had a wealth of knowledge and findings from the Muslim world, which they took from. They took these manuscripts and then they built upon them. Had it not been for what they found in Islamic Spain, the Europeans would not have been able to work and do what they did in terms of the scientific revolution. We would still be about 300 to 500 years behind. We wouldn't have the iPhone 6 and all that we have today and the plasma screen TVs. In terms of our technology, we would be very far back, because the Muslims at that time had done 800 years worth of work and research. So if you look into the history books, you find that Western scholars and academics, they went into Spain, Islamic Spain, especially Toledo, and what they found there was analytical research. They found scholarship, they found libraries. You have the likes of, and they used all of this information to set the foundational principles for the sciences such as astronomy, such as geology, such as chemistry, and many, many more. You have Adelaide of Bath and Daniel of Morley, two individuals from England, and they happen to make their way to Toledo and they find these manuscripts from Islamic Spain and they bring them back to Oxford and they establish Oxford University, one of the most influential and significant academic educational institutions in the entire world. Yes, it came as a result of Islam, and it's actually that deep. You have the so many Western academics refer to as the first scientist, Ibn al-Haytham, who founded what was the beginnings of the scientific method that we have here today. Yet, scientific method was set in motion by, again, Muslim scholars. Now, okay, the Muslim civilization had all these amazing, fantastic things. But what does that have to do with Islam and the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him? Well, Adam Smith, who is that funny looking guy on the back of your £20 note, pull it out quickly, have a look. Yeah, him. He explains the link between Islamic Spain and all the wealth and knowledge that they had at the time and the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. He explains that had it not been for Islamic governance, had it not been for Islamic values, had it not been for the Islamic State at the time that provided and facilitated the correct environment and circumstances in terms of the social political context, which facilitated and made easy for people to look into the interconnecting principles of nature, we would not have had this wealth of knowledge that came out of Islamic Spain and influenced the Renaissance. So what he's saying is that there are certain rules and legislations and customs and norms and teachings of Islam which the rulers implemented and enforced upon the people, which allowed the civilization to flourish in that way. Think about it. The reason why Islam made it so far ahead and Europe didn't, even though Europe came as a result of the Roman Empire and all of that. I know that's not very academic, but you know, we had all of these fantastic civilizations in Europe beforehand. But the reason why Islam just jumped ahead by 800 odd years is because Islam taught us to be a lot more tolerant. See, in England, in Europe, not in England, in Europe, if you went against the government, which was the church at the time, you would get a slap, a very big slap, in the form of the 30-year war, the 80-year war, the massacre in St. Bartholomew's Day, etc., so on and so forth. See, we never had this kind of cultural intolerant baggage, because the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, who obviously got what he got from Allah, the creator and master of the heavens and the earth, he taught how to live in a way where we could live the best possible lives and develop a successful civilization. So I think it would be pretty preposterous to postulate that Islamic Spain and the Muslim world at the time having this wealth of knowledge was a historical accident. No, because Islamic teachings, which came from the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, are a direct result as to why so much flourishing and prosperity happened at the time. And just to be specific about the iPhone 6, well, you had a Muslim scholar, and his name was Al-Khwarizmi. And Al-Khwarizmi is known in Renaissance Europe as the father of algebra. He set rules of arithmetic that were to be later used for the initial formalization of what would become the algorithm. And if any of you guys know mathematics and computer science, you know computers and phones, whether it's a Samsung, a HTC, whether it's an iPhone 5, 4, 6, whatever, they don't operate without an algorithm. And he was able to do what he did as a result of what Islam facilitated for him. And Islam came as a result of Allah and the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, which is why we have to be grateful to the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and pay tribute to him and the Master of the heavens and the earth, who is Allah, for the iPhone 6 and my iPhone 5. I mean, I just got it a few months ago, so I'm not about to change it so quickly yet, you see what I'm saying? So the reason I went through this is because I think in this time that we're living in, when Islam seems to be like the enemy, the foe, it seems to be like an alien, when we come to learn about how deep-rooted and connected our history is with Islam and the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, then it helps us kind of break down these barriers and realize, hey, Muslims are not your enemies. We're your friends. There's many things that you've given to us in the 21st century that we take back home, like, yo. And there's many things that we've given to you in order for you to have what you have now in the first place. We love you, man, so love us back. But most importantly, whether you believe in him or not, love the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. Don't be like the dogs that bite the hands that feed them. I don't mean that in a disrespectful way, but you have people like Katie Hopkins tweeting insulting things about the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. Yet the phone that she's using to send that tweet came as a result of his teachings. The fact that you can go into the court and whatever, have, you know, like so many things, I don't want to go into it, but the fact that we have so many things in Western civilization as a direct result of his teachings and what he taught, at least we should be grateful to him, if not love him. And I would like to end with the words of Michael Hart and Lamartine. Michael Hart wrote a book on the 100 most influential men in the entire world. And he explains that although, and he placed the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, right at the top. And he explains that although many people would contest my decision to put the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, at the top, he said, we cannot argue that there is no person who has been as supremely successful as him in the religious context and the secular context. And he was a Christian, by the way. And to end with the words of Lamartine, and this quote is so powerful, I have to hold it on my iPhone and read it to you, because you need to feel what he says. And Lamartine says, philosopher, orator, apostle, legislator, warrior, conqueror of ideas, restorer of rational dogmas, of a cult without images, the founder of 20 terrestrial empires and 1 spiritual empire. That is Muhammad. As regards all standards by which human greatness may be measured, we may well ask, is there any man greater than he? Beloved brothers, sisters and friends, send this video to every single person that you know that has an iPhone, and make sure you tweet this video to Katie Hopkins. It's time we educate people such as her. I love you all for the sake of Allah, whether you're Muslim or not. Peace and blessings be upon you. May we all be guided upon the straight path. Share the video, like the video. Peace.